race plan in a grand final. There's going to be some other crews going back home, circling the date to their next race and seeing if they can squeeze in some extra workouts, squeeze in some extra technical workouts. We've got a lot of hungry athletes out there in more ways than one, and they're going to get back to work.
Mary, thank you very much for your insight into this race. It's been highly instructive.
We are getting ready for the other premier event here at the San Diego Crew Classic, the Copley Cup. Event number 82 will be coming up. It is the Men's Collegiate Varsity Invitational Grand Final. And checking who is involved, it is California, Stanford, University of British Columbia, Pennsylvania, Gonzaga, and Oregon State.
Swallow the wind through my nose, feel the sand beneath my toes. As I walk along the shore, it's like a yeah, yeah, deep inside me somewhere. It's like a la-dee-da-da-dee-dee. Happiness is calling me.
Happiness is calling at sandiego.org.
Lily Esimo is a proud sponsor of the San Diego Crew Classic. Make sure you try one of their great coffee products at the Crew Classic concessions. From humble roots, a big vision, and the desire to share handcrafted beer with America's finest. Karl Strauss has grown from one brewery restaurant to a local institution. Make sure you try one of their tasty craft brews at the Karl Strauss Beer Garden. And don't forget to stop by the Chevrolet display and go for a test drive in a brand new 2013 Volt, Cruze, or Traverse, and receive a $10 voucher, good for any concession here at the Crew Classic, including the Beer Garden. And we're about 5 minutes away from our fantastic second grand final here, a Copley Cup. It'll be the Men's Collegiate Varsity Invitational. And even though it is a men's race, I'm certain that Mary Whipple, an outstanding coxswoman for the Olympic team, has some thoughts and ideas about these crews. Mary?
Well, now we get a shot to look at what the men are going to prepare for the IRA coming up in June, which is going to actually be happening in Sacramento at Lake Natoma. Once every 4 years, the IRA travels to the West Coast. So this is your first chance to see what you could see again up in Sacramento if you make the trek up. The University of California, Cal, they're coached by Mike Tatey. They're going to be seasoned. They're going to be crushing, seeing if they can maximize their base speed. Stanford, rivals. Whenever these two boats get side by side, it's going to be electric. So we're going to see two big boats there. We've got some other boats that are going to be candidates of winning their respected championships to get invited to the IRA, such as Gonzaga. The Gonzaga can have that opportunity to win Juarez to get their invite to the IRA. So we've got a good field coming out, and we can't forget about Oregon State, the Beavers, coached by Steve Todd. They're going to be throwing everything they have at lane 6.
Okay, and Charles, if you'd kind of give us a rundown on how these crews looked in their heat races yesterday.
Yes, certainly Cal with the form crew. They did a 5:45, which is pretty swift by any description. Stanford were on their heels. They're within about 7 seconds of them. Then another 7 seconds back to the crew from British Columbia, the University of British Columbia. They haven't done too much 2,000-meter racing this year. The Canadian Collegiate season happens in our fall, but they have recently won their long-distance race, the British Columbia's equivalent of the boat race, the Brown Cup, by beating the University of Victoria. over 3.5 kilometers. So this will be their first hit out of 2000 in the spring.
As we wait for our grand final here, we'd like to thank all of the sponsors and donors for allowing the Crew Classic to continue the San Diego tradition. San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, Wendell Reed, Iliissimo, Chevrolet, Carl Strauss, and Coca-Cola. And about ready to get started down at the start line. And Jim Jorgensen, what does it look like down there?
Oh, well, this is event number 82, Men's Collegiate Varsity Invitational Grand Final, a.k.a. the Copley Cup. The final crew is backing into their stake boats. Here are the lane assignments. Lane 1, University of California. Lane 2, Stanford University. Lane 3, University of British Columbia. Lane 4, University of Pennsylvania.
2 minutes, Jovan.
Lane 5, Gonzaga University. Lane 6, Oregon State University. The wind is still coming, a cross tailwind, pushing the boats a bit from starboard to port, but very fair conditions.
You mentioned the wind, Jim, and we do notice that there is a little wind ripple in the water down that way, but starting from about 1,000 meters into the finish line, winds are very light and variable, and we have fairly glassy conditions at this end. How do you think that might affect the racers as they move through this course?
I'm sure they're thrilled that the wind hasn't clocked westerly, favoring the inside lanes. It's just a question of persistence in making that boat go fast, but it's a very fair course, particularly down here at the start. We're about ready to pull the crews and have the start of the race. Not much sculling going on because of the lack of wind.
We are patiently awaiting the start of the Copley Cup. This is the Men's Collegiate Varsity Invitational, event number 82. They're starting the polling, and we'll go to Jim.
University of British Columbia.
You can hear the starter.
University of Pennsylvania. Gonzaga University.
Pennsylvania,
Oregon
Coxon and
State
Bauman have their
University.
hand up, meaning they're not ready.
Attention.
Here we go.
Go!
Here we go as they explode off the start. I see the two-man jump the seat in the California crew in lane 1. Seems to have recovered back on his wheels. Other than that, for 1 or 2 strokes, it's a clean start. California just blistering off the start, as is Stanford, as is UBC. But it's California in lane 1, your race leader by 2 seats over Stanford as we approach the 250-meter mark. So it's Cal in first, Stanford second, then UBC, followed by Pennsylvania, and pretty much following form Gonzaga in that 5th spot, and then Oregon State. Golden Bears now with about a length advantage after 400 meters. Rowing at 38, 39 strokes per minute. They want to establish a lead and continue to push the crews astern. So your race leader as we come to 500 meters, Golden Bears from University of California in lane 1, followed by Stanford Cardinal in lane 2. 3rd position, the Thunderbirds from University of British Columbia. 4th spot goes to the Quakers from Pennsylvania. Then outside to Oregon State. The 4th crew, Gonzaga. So that's the call at 600 meters.
We're on the water for the Copley Cup, and Cal is in the lead, and they averted disaster, according to Jim Jorgensen. Apparently one of their seats came unhinged and got off track, but somehow or other the young man got it back on track, and they continue to be on the lead, followed by Stanford in lane number 2. Lane number 3 is assigned to the University of British Columbia. Lane 4 is Pennsylvania. Gonzaga is in lane 5, and Oregon State University all the way out in lane 6. Our commentators, Charles and Mary, how does it look to you so far?
Well, what we're seeing at the moment is pretty much what the heats told us. Cal yesterday did a 5:45, and they've looked like they're confirming that sort of distance at the moment. They've got clear water on Stanford. Stanford have clear water on the rest of the field. UBC and Penn are duking it out in the middle of the race course, and Gonzaga and Oregon State seem to be locked in a private duel out on the far side as well. They've already raced as a duel once this season, and Gonzaga beat Oregon State, so Oregon State will be out for revenge. Mary, how do you see this unfolding so far?
Well, after probably a jittery of a start, if that was true, if one of the oarsmen of Cal jumped his slide, they did recover fine. They had a couple high strokes there, but they are striding down to a crushing base speed, about 36, 37. And they're just probably thinking about sitting up, sitting tall. If they're in the lead, if I was that coxswain, I would say more. What is number 1, number 2 in the country who raced yesterday, Callum Brown, doing today? They're recovering while they're getting a little bit faster.
Yes, so you're referring to Washington and Brown's race yesterday, which was held on a very rough and rugged course on Lake Washington and the Montlake Cut. And in fact, they had to reduce the length of the racing to about 1750 meters. It was so bad.
Yep, but these conditions are better. These crews are faster right now. Stanford is sitting up. They're not going to let Cal get away from them. And it's interesting to see what Penn is going to do. Penn is on an East Coast crew, and they've had to deal with a little bit of weather there with freezing and getting off of the river, and now they're coming over to sunny San Diego, or overcast sunny San Diego, and seeing how they can do against the big dogs.
California continues on the lead as we are approaching 500 meters left to go in this race. Stanford is not letting them out of their sight. Penn has moved up slightly and gotten past the University of British Columbia, and then all the way on the outside it's Oregon State and Gonzaga. But the leader right now in lane number 1, as they have been throughout, is the University of California, and they are trying to stay ahead of Stanford, beginning to make a run at them. Penn has made a move and gotten past the University of British Columbia. All the way to the outside, it's Oregon State and then Gonzaga.
Yes, Cal are being commanding here. It's something we've seen many times before. Stanford in the past has sometimes got close, and Stanford will always scrap for every inch that Cal can take over them. Mary, how do you see it going?
I'm seeing people sitting up. The coxswains are saying 250 is coming. We're going to wind it up, and we're going to see if we can just stretch out those puddles, bend those oars a little bit more, sit a little taller, and let's get this boat across the finish line.
California continues on the lead. They're right on the shoreline here. Stanford has ratcheted it up just a bit, but they've been unable to close any ground on California. Penn has moved out to that 3rd position with UBC in 4th. All the way to the outside, Oregon has closed down. That's Oregon State has closed down some ground, and then Gonzaga. But Cal seems to have a stern to bow lead here, and they are moving along very smoothly and seem to be handling the measure of Stanford at the moment. It is California along the shoreline. Stanford's in 2nd place in lane 2, and now UBC is fighting back against Penn, but Penn continues to hold that 3rd position, but UBC is on the move. Oregon State and then Gonzaga. Looking at our finish line, it appears that the easy Copley Cup winner is going to be California, followed by Stanford. Then looking to see how we go with that 3rd place finish as they come across the line. It appears almost bow marker to bow marker, but we'll give it to Penn ever so slightly. And then comes UBC, University of British Columbia, Oregon State, and Gonzaga. We'll check on that 3rd and 4th position just for interest's sake here, as California has won the Copley Cup here at the 2013 San Diego Crew Classic, as the crews are almost dead even as they hit the pole, and we're still going to give it to Penn ever so slightly, but we'll have to wait to official word. California did a fine job holding off Stanford, and your thoughts, Mary?
Well, these two crews are going to see each other probably two to three more times during that season, and so Stanford, they held on as long as possible, and they were fighting to not have that open water break free, and Cal was being relentless, and they said, we want that open water, we're going to take it.
Well, it came darn close to open water when it finally wound up. It was certainly stern to bow marker distance, which was a very substantial win for the University of California in the 2013 and 40th annual San Diego Crew Classic. By the way, folks, Chevrolet is right here on the San Diego Crew